Lions preseason shocker. 4 positions just got a massive upgrade. Detroit, we need to talk. And before we get into it, if you're new here, welcome to Detroit Scope, the channel built for Lions fans who want the real story, not just the highlight reel. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers and honestly, we're struggling to get there. So if you like what you see today, do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing and it means everything to this channel. Okay, now let's get into it, because what just happened on the field against the Washington Commanders might be the most important story of the entire Lions preseason, and almost nobody is talking about it the right way. Everyone wants to obsess over box scores in preseason football. Wins, losses, final touchdown counts. None of that matters right now. And if you've followed this team for more than 5 minutes, you already know that. What matters is what's happening underneath the surface, in the trenches, on the depth chart, in the matchups that don't show up on a stat sheet but absolutely show up on Sundays in November. And during this Commanders game, while the final result was still up in the air, something became crystal clear. The Detroit Lions have quietly, almost sneakily, upgraded multiple positions on this roster. Not just replaced players, upgraded them. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start in the backfield, because this is the story nobody expected to be talking about heading into the season. Last year, when Jahmyr Gibbs needed a breather, the Lions turned to David Montgomery, and behind him, in that murky 3rd and 4th running back role, it was Sione Vaki, who battled injuries all year, and Craig Reynolds, a steady, reliable, blue-collar back who never really scared anybody but always did his job. Fans love Craig Reynolds. There's nothing wrong with Craig Reynolds. But here's the twist. Washington signed him this preseason because their running back room got hit with injuries, and watching him line up in a Commanders uniform against his old team was the moment that cracked this whole story wide open. Because watching Craig Reynolds run for Washington, it hit like a lightning bolt. That is exactly what our 3rd and 4th running back position used to look like. And this year, it's Jacob Saylors carrying that load, and the tape does not lie. Saylors is a different animal. Where Reynolds was consistent but limited, plodding forward, taking what was blocked for him, Saylors shows vision that's a level above, a burst through the hole that Reynolds never really had, and the ability to make defenders miss in the open field that simply was not part of Reynolds' game. Reynolds ran with some power. Sure, he was a guy you could trust for 4 yards in a cloud of dust, but he was never a guy who could be the engine of an NFL backfield during a long regular season grind. Saylors looks like he can be more than that, even when he got steamrolled trying to pick up a block, because that's part of the rookie learning curve. The flashes are undeniable, and it's a real, tangible upgrade at a position most fans weren't even worried about. Now let's move to the trenches, because this next one might be the biggest development of the entire preseason for Detroit. 3 pressures, 2 sacks, all from the combination of DJ Wonnum and rookie standout Derek Moore. Let that sink in for a second. Derek Moore, in his very first taste of professional game action, forced a 3-and-out on Washington's opening drive with a bull rush that blew up the pocket so fast the quarterback had to get rid of the ball early against the Commanders' starting left tackle, not some scrub, the starter. Then, right before halftime, he did it again, this time working around the edge against the backup right tackle, showing off real bend and closing speed to run down a mobile quarterback in space. That's not a fluke. That's a player who looks exactly like the terror off the edge that tore through college football at Michigan. Except now he's doing it to grown men getting paid millions of dollars to stop him, and making it look just as easy. And DJ Wonnum, lining up in a featured role opposite Aidan Hutchinson, got his own sack against the starting tackle. Think about what that means for a Lions defense that has been desperately searching, for anyone, to make quarterbacks uncomfortable from the other side of the line. Because here's the truth about opposite of Hutch last year. It was a mess. Marcus Davenport was supposed to be the answer and instead spent most of the season hurt. What followed was a revolving door of guys who just could not consistently get home. This year, there are legitimate options. 3, maybe 4 players who can rotate in that spot and be better than what Detroit trotted out there in 2025. DJ Wonnum brings the ability to hold his ground against the run while still threatening the passer, which matters in this scheme, because you have to be able to defend the run to stay on the field consistently. Derek Moore profiles as more of a pure pass-rushing weapon, a specialist who comes in and hunts the quarterback. Put those 2 developments together and you're looking at a defense that could look completely different this season. Consistent pressure changes everything. It makes the corners look better because quarterbacks don't have time to let routes develop. It creates turnovers because rushed quarterbacks make bad decisions under duress. And most importantly, it kills drives before they ever get rolling, because a sack is a bigger conversation ender than almost any penalty you can think of. The number of drives that end in a touchdown after a sack is small, and if Detroit can generate pressure like this consistently through 17 games, that is a legitimately massive development for a defense trying to take the next step. Let's keep the good news rolling, because up next is the tight end room, a spot that flew under the radar all offseason but might matter more than people realize. To be clear, Brock Wright is still on this roster, and is not going anywhere. That part of the equation stays the same. But what's changed is what's stacked behind Sam Laporta now, with Tyler Conklin and Jackson Meeks in the mix. Here's the blunt truth about it. If Sam Laporta isn't ready to go in Week 1 for any reason, fans should want to see Conklin and Meeks on that field, not Brock Wright out there by himself trying to be the answer. Brock Wright is a mediocre run blocker who does not pose a real threat as a receiver. And if you're not an elite run blocker, you need to bring something else to the table to justify snaps. Tyler Conklin and Jackson Meeks are legitimate receiving threats at the position, and getting a passing threat on the field at tight end changes how a defense has to respect that personnel grouping. It's not a massive, franchise-altering upgrade, but it's a real one. And in a league of margins, real upgrades at backup tight end matter more than people give them credit for. It even helps the run blocking indirectly, because a defender who has to respect the threat of a tight end releasing into a route can't just crash downhill without hesitation, and that half second of hesitation is exactly what makes run blocking easier. And now, for what might be the single biggest upgrade of them all, one that touches every single play on offense, the arrival of offensive coordinator Drew Petzing. Look, almost anybody would have been an improvement over what Detroit got out of the John Morton experiment last year. That's not exactly a bold claim, but it's how Petzing is doing it, even in meaningless preseason snaps, that has fans buzzing. Watch what happened with Josh Dobbs under center. He takes a brutal hit, gets sacked, fumbles, Commanders score. Rough. Next drive, he throws an interception. Even rougher. So what does Petzing do in response? He doesn't panic. He doesn't get conservative. He trusts his quarterback and dials up a read option that goes 50 yards for a touchdown. Just like that. Bad start. Immediate answer. Confidence restored. That's good play calling. That's a coordinator who understands rhythm and how to pull a quarterback out of a funk. Then rookie Luke Altmaier comes into the game. And on his very first play, Petzing calls something that gets a receiver wide open on the backside. And that theme kept repeating itself throughout the entire game. Receiver after receiver running wide open, even with backups going up against Washington starters. That is not an accident. That's scheme. Everything was so tight and cramped under John Morton last year. And then Dan Campbell took over play-calling duties midseason and suddenly the offense started using the entire width of the field again. And things clicked. Drew Petzing seems to already understand that principle at his core. And he clearly knows how to weaponize the tight end room too. And the receiving stats back it up. By the time this game was being wrapped up, Brock Wright, Cedric Wilson, and Jackson Meeks alone had combined for 5 of Detroit's 13 total catches on the day. That's not a coincidence. That a coordinator spreading the ball around and getting his weapons involved early. So where does that leave us? A backfield with a legitimate new spark plug in Jacob Salas. A pass rush that finally has juice from Derek Moore and DJ One-Num opposite Aidan Hutchinson. A tight end room with real receiving juice behind Sam Laporta. And an offensive coordinator in Drew Petzing who is already showing flashes of exactly the kind of aggressive, spread the field, trust your playmakers mentality that fans have been begging for since Dan Campbell took over the play sheet last year. None of this is happening on the biggest stage yet. This is preseason football against backups and split rosters, and everybody watching this knows that context matters. But upgrades are upgrades. And when you see this many of them stacking up in the same game, across 4 completely different areas of the roster, it tells you something real about the direction this franchise is heading. Detroit Lions fans have every reason to be excited heading into the regular season. And this game was proof, even if the final score doesn't tell the whole story. Before you go, seriously, help us out. Detroit Scope is grinding to hit 1,000 subscribers and we are not there yet. So if this video gave you even a little bit of that Lions optimism today, smash that subscribe button, drop a like, and let us know in the comments which of these upgrades has you the most excited for the season. We read every single comment. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Peace. Go Lions.